Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 mod review. And today we have a very interesting and very cool mod, one that's going to allow you to overhaul a handful of the vanilla weapons, including that god-awful assault rifle. This mod is known as the LSW Gun Kit by OCZ, or Ophelia Neoma, and this is going to add a handful of attachments over at the weapons workbench that will allow you to convert some of the vanilla weapons into some new and interesting designs. Now, when I first looked at this mod, I thought it was going to be something similar to my upcoming attachment pack, which was just going to add a ton of attachments to some of the existing weapons, but it's not quite that. It's more like a conversion kit, or at least a couple of conversion kits for a handful of the weapons. Specifically with this mod, you're going to be getting one for the assault rifle in the vanilla game, a couple for the combat rifle, and some for the deliverer as well. Just those three weapons for now, but based on the mod page description and also the name of the file, my guess is we're going to be getting even more of these, so that's pretty neat. Now, as far as this mod works, when you first install it, you just need to grab any of the existing vanilla weapons, head over to a weapons workbench, and you can start tinkering with these things. You're going to get some brand new receivers that do have their own unique cosmetics, which all have their own set of attachments, including different barrels, stocks, magazines, and even scopes for some of these weapons. And they also have some really cool universal parts that work for any version of the weapon, and there's even some unique interaction with other mods like see-through scopes, as well as my own combat rifle remesh and even my MG69 assault rifle replacer, so we'll get into that a little bit more later on in the video. One thing I will say before we get further into this mod is I highly recommend picking up the right-handed combat rifle animation made by the same author as this mod here. I'll have that linked down in the description, as well as all of the receivers added with this mod for the combat rifle are right-handed, so if you don't download an animation, it's just going to look kind of weird. Now, really quick, talking about the design of the attachments in this pack, I really enjoy these. These look very lore friendly and honestly look like something that should have been in the base game. Lots of use of wood furniture and hard steel just makes these weapons fit right at home. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and check these things out in game so we can see exactly what you're getting when you download this mod. Now, here we are with what I would consider to be the main attraction of this mod, definitely the reason that I downloaded it. This is a fully converted version of the vanilla assault rifle into a new LSW. You can see it still has some aspects of the vanilla assault rifle, but with a much better profile, a slimmed down barrel, and a smaller overall shape, while still maintaining that vanilla assault rifle silhouette. And this thing's pretty interesting. As we move it around, you'll even see a pretty crazy unique magazine and a cool new scope that I really like the design of. It reminds me of the classic Gauss rifle scope from Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, yet it's made entirely out of Fallout 4's Gauss rifle scope, so that's pretty interesting. I like this thing a whole lot, and this is pretty much exactly what you're going to get in regards to the assault rifle conversions. Now, when it comes to the combat rifle, you're going to get a bit more. There's far more attachments at the weapons workbench than there are for the assault rifle in this mod, and I gotta say, I really like the new profile of this weapon. The full wood stock, the new iron sights, the compensator, it all just works together and has a really cool, unique profile that helps to separate this thing from the vanilla combat shotgun. You can even see this interacting a little bit with my combat rifle remesh here, as we see a new magazine that I think pairs really nice with this setup, but I can show you some more cool interactions later when we check out all of the attachments in this pack. Alternatively, if you're going for something a bit crazier, you can make the combat rifle into a gigantic LMG of sorts with an even crazier magazine similar to the assault rifle we were looking at earlier. This thing is super goofy. It reminds me a bit of the show shot, at least in regards to the magazine. Super cool what you can do with the stuff in this mod. Again, we'll touch on it more later. As for the deliverer, as I said, this one also does have some conversion kits over at the weapons workbench. This one doesn't look too different from its vanilla profile, but there are some really cool unique things going on here, like a new slide with a cool cutout. It almost gives it the profile of an M9, this really neat compensator here, and a super extended magazine. I gotta say, even though this is a pretty minimal change, I do like it, and I think it definitely adds to this weapon a good bit, especially since it was pretty lacking in the vanilla game. Now, one thing I want to mention before we move on to all the individual attachments is how this mod interacts with other attachment-based mods or other remeshes, and the answer is this thing works pretty dang well, I gotta say. Here we see a combination of my MG69 parts with parts from this pack, and they all work together pretty well. There is some very minor clipping here and there, and the wood textures aren't exactly the same, but honestly, I think this works and makes for a really cool design, and all the iron sights line up. This is a lot of fun to use, and honestly, it makes for a really cool, unique profile, very different from the vanilla assault rifle. So combining, mixing and matching your favorite remesh mods, I think is the way to go with this pack. You can even see here combining my combat rifle remesh with some of the barrels, stocks, and other attachments from this pack makes for a really cool, unique look that you just can't get in the vanilla game. So combining these mods, once again, really, really fun and cool. Now then, when it comes to getting started with this pack and actually applying all of these cool new conversions, it works pretty much the same for each of these weapons. Here we have the vanilla assault rifle, or the MG69 as I have it here. It's going to work the same regardless of what remesh you use. You're going to head over to the receivers first, scroll all the way to the bottom where you'll find the new LSW receiver, and you'll see it completely changes the mesh to the new mesh. So regardless of what remesh you use, this will still work. We'll go ahead and equip that, and you'll notice a couple of things right off the bat here. It doesn't line up with my barrel exactly, and that's because this receiver was intended to be used with the newly added barrel. Not a big deal, you just got to add on that new barrel and that'll fix that right up. Additionally, in terms of stats, this thing's pretty interesting. It has a lower damage than the more powerful damages of the vanilla gun, and that's because it's actually on par with the vanilla automatic receiver with a base damage of 20 and a fire rate of 113. This thing has a base damage of 20 and a fire rate of 104, so it's actually kind of underpowered, which is pretty interesting. Now then, for the barrels, we're going to head over to the LSW barrel. That's the only barrel added to the assault rifle with this mod, but it does look really, really cool, and as you can see, we're already building something pretty neat and different from the vanilla game. For stocks, with this one, we're going to add on that LSW stock. And then, of course, for magazines, we're going to throw on any magazine of our choice, but the newly added one is that prototype magazine, which is pretty interesting. For sights, you have the option for adding pretty much any sight that you would like, but again, there is one newly added scope, and that is the LSW scope, that cool one with all of the Gauss rifle parts. And then the last option is just to choose your muzzle device, and anything works here, any of the vanilla ones or some of the newly added ones like the compressor brake or the shielded brake. Personally, I think the shielded brake looks really cool, and now we have our newly modified LSW. Pretty cool gun. For the combat rifle, however, we have far more options. Heading over to the receivers, there are some mixed in here that we need to check out. Amongst the vanilla receivers, you'll find things like the stabilized receiver, which has an interesting new foregrip here, and then the stabilized auto receiver, which has not only the new foregrip, but a redesigned receiver as well with a different shape, so that's pretty interesting. If we scroll down further, though, we'll even find something like the... Here we are, somewhere at the bottom, there it is, the LSW receiver, which has a pretty crazy metal foregrip and a carry handle, so that's pretty neat. So you can just pick of your favorites. Let's go ahead and throw on the LSW, I suppose, and then head over to barrels. For barrels, everything is pretty much the same, except we have two new barrels, the short gunner barrel and the long gunner barrel. Go ahead and throw on the short. This is going to add some pretty cool textures to the barrel and a bit of a different shape than we're used to. When it comes to stocks, we do have a couple of stock options as well, like the full-length wooden stock, which as you can see adds wood all the way up the gun. It's going to work better with some of the other receivers as opposed to the LSW receiver, as there is some clipping, but it's not the worst thing. When it comes to other stocks, we have the skeletonized wooden stock, which is pretty similar to the vanilla one, except it has a nice cutout here to reduce the weight a little bit. When it comes to magazines, we do have a couple of options as well. We have that new prototype magazine, which is going to add this crazy thing here. It is a bit stretched and a bit warped in regards to the textures, but it is still pretty fun and adds a cool, unique magazine that's very different from anything in the vanilla game. And we also have the LSW magazine, which is going to add a cool looking box style drum mag. I actually like this a lot. Looks really neat. For sights, there is one new added sights for the combat rifle, and that is the post sight, which is pretty similar to the vanilla ring sights, except it's going to add the rear sight a bit further up on the gun, and it adds a bit of a unique profile that I like a lot. And then finally, for muzzles, we do have the compressor brake as well as the shielded brake that we saw on the LSW from earlier. And finally, that takes us to the deliverer. We do have a couple of receiver options, all of the standard vanilla ones, but then at the bottom we have the trimmed receiver, which is the one with the cutout that has that sort of M9 style profile. And then we also have a railed receiver, which will add a Picatinny rail to the top and bottom of this weapon to allow for different sights and mounts. Yet, this mod doesn't actually add any different sights or mounts, it just adds the rails. So that's pretty interesting. For barrels, we do have a new barrel known as the Trooper Barrel. Pretty similar to the extended barrel, but it's a bit beefier and adds some critical damage, so that's cool. For grips, everything is the same, just the standard old stuff on the regular deliverer. For magazines, we do have a new mag known as the Katana Mag, which is just going to be a much larger extended mag. For sights, we don't have anything added, sadly, with this mod, but you can throw on something from, say, the combat sights from the See-Through Scopes mod, which do pair pretty nice, I think, with the newly added receivers. And then for muzzles, we do have a couple of things. We have the match compensator, the compressor brake, and the shielded brake. Since the vanilla gun was definitely lacking in regards to compensators and muzzle brakes, it only had a suppressor, so having these options is pretty nice. And that's basically it when it comes to this mod. Lots of new attachments that are added to these 3 weapons, and I look forward to see what weapons are overhauled next. I can't wait to finish my attachment pack, as I think this is going to pair really well together. Since all of my stuff is going to be purely additive, it should just work together, so that's pretty cool. Now, no damage test for today, since we're only checking out attachments and not newly added weapons. These are going to perform pretty similar to their vanilla counterparts. Regardless though, this mod is a lot of fun and adds some cool unique aesthetics to the game that maybe should have been there from the start. If you want to try this mod out, it will be linked down in the description below, again with that reanimation mod as well. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a rating. Consider subscribing if you haven't already for more videos just like this. Big shout out to all of my patrons for supporting every single video. And a very special thank you to Astro, Captain Chaos, Helljumper, Indecisive Wolf, Jackie Noid, Cushy, Moonlit Gamer, Feed, and Youth RC for joining that Tier 3 Patreon membership. If you want to support the channel through Patreon, it'll be linked down in the description below, but it is completely optional. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace!